Connie Yoshimura, Bruce Phelps,
Here.
Stacy Dean,
Here.
Terry Park,
Here.
Dana Pruz, Ray Hickle, Peter Mulcahy,
Here.
James Ferguson,
Here.
Tyler Robinson.
Here.
And we do have a quorum by one this evening. Do we have any postponements or changes to the agenda? It appears that we have a couple of postponements on case number 2012110 will be moved till 10:01, and a postponement of 2012109 will be postponed till 9/17/2012. And we would ask for a positive motion from someone to allow them to be postponed to those two dates. And I have someone who Stacy Deans has moved, and Mr. Ferguson is second. And do I see any issues with that? Seeing none, it'll pass. Moving on, we have minutes from the July 9th, 2012 in front of you, and these are draft minutes. And we also have the minutes from August 13th meeting. And I would take a positive motion to adopt those minutes. Mr. Ferguson has made the move, and then Mr. Mulcahy has seconded. Any issues or any changes in those minutes? Seeing none, we will take them as being approved. Ms. Dees, could you please take and give us disclosures, please?
Commissioner Phelps, do you have anything to disclose?
Only that I will not be participating in one of the resolutions for approval since I was not there for the discussions or the public hearing, which is D1B, the approval of the Title 21 for the Chugach Eagle River land use regulations.
Mr. Robinson, do you have anything to disclose?
Yes, I do. In the matter of case 2012-106, I will not be participating in that case this evening. The petitioner is Cook Inlet Housing Authority, my employer.
Chair Terry Parks, what would you like to do since we'd be down to 5 at that point? Do we give the petitioner an option?
Well, the first thing we need to do is direct Mr. Robinson not to vote on that particular case, and then we'll address that.
Thank you.
After disclosures.
Need me to move to direct Commissioner Robinson to participate in case 2012-106. So moved.
And Mr. Ferguson has seconded, and I assume that we will have to do this by a roll call vote.
I will not be backing the motion I just seconded.
Okay, right.
And I will not be backing the motion I just made.
That's right.
And I will not be either.
And the same.
And I am the same, so it looks like Mr. Robinson will not be participating in this. And we can vote if you like, please.
Commissioner Ferguson, do you have anything you wish to disclose?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Mulcahy, do you have anything you'd like to disclose?
Nothing to disclose, ma'am.
Commissioner Parks, do you have anything to disclose?
I have nothing.
And I have nothing to disclose.
At this point, we would like to make a comment on that case. 2012-106 will be a short board, which means there is only 5 members on the board who can vote on that particular case because we only have 6 people here. And because of that, if the petitioner agrees, the case can be moved to the next regular session. This could occur within the next 30 days, which does not require renoticing in the case. If the petitioner is unable to attend the next meeting available, the petitioner has a one-time only option to choose the next date certain at no extra fee. Further, a fully constituted board consists of 9 members, and with a short board of 5 members present, in order for a case to be approved, it would require all 5 members on the board to vote for approval. We offer this option proceeding with a short board or accepting the postponement to the next regular meeting. And our next regular meeting is September 17th at 6:30 in this location. If the petitioner accepts the meeting, and the meeting is postponed, if not, the hearing proceeds. So we'll give the Cook Inlet Housing Authority in case 2012-106. It's a zoning of conditional use for off-street parking, the opportunity at this time to postpone so they won't have to sit here through all the other public hearings. Can I hear from the petitioner from that particular case? Can you come up to the mic, please, and state your name, and then we'll make sure that we get you on the record. Thank you.
My name is Michael Fredericks with Rim First People, and I'm here representing Cook Inlet Housing Authority, and we don't need to postpone.
Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
No, she did not want to postpone. No, she does not want to postpone. Okay, moving right along, we'll move to the consent agenda. Well, special order, there's no time extensions are on the regular agenda. Unfinished business, there is none. And we'll take a look at the consent agenda. And I would take a positive motion to approve, and if anybody wants to pull anything, I'd like to hear it at this time. I have Stacy Deans, who's moved to approve the consent agenda in its whole, and seconded by Mr. Ferguson. Do any of those want to be pulled? Mr. Robinson, you have your in the queue.
Yeah, I think I'd like to pull Resolution 2012-035.
And that's the Title 21, Chapter 10. That's fine. We'll pull that one. Anything else? With the exception of case number 2012-035, the consent agenda, do I have anybody who has any issues with it? We'll take that as a positive. It is approved. And now let's handle case number 2012-035. Mr. Robinson, did you want to make some statements on that?
I did. I'll have a motion here, I think, in a minute, but I wanted to throw out there that, you know, the consortium came forward with a number, you know, with a fairly substantial code rewrite amendment to Chapter 10. And in it, they proposed a lot of zoning districts, you know, most of which are new zoning districts, some of which were small changes to zoning districts. And the way that it was sort of presented to us is that, and really that constituted the bulk of the Chapter 10, you know, code change. And the way it was presented and the way our discussion went is it was sort of an all or nothing discussion, that we voted down any of the changes, any of the fact that Chugach Eagle River could have any of their own zoning districts. My understanding is, as this moves on to the Assembly, is that there's great desire to look at that. And I think just as I read the resolution, there's no acknowledgement that I think the way that our conversation went and our deliberations went was that there still should be an opportunity for further work on those, on that title. And that I think in the interest of time, they were in a hurry to get the Assembly, but I think had we had another option, we would have liked to see some additional work and brought back and maybe some further strengthened recommendations as to why they felt the need to have some of those unique zoning districts. And so I think, I don't know if I can just ask the body as a question, but if there would be anyone else that would be in favor of recognizing that conversation that we had, or we simply say, I mean, it's a very positively written resolution, but the fact of the matter is we virtually passed none of what was in front of us. So I feel like there's a little bit of a discrepancy there.
Well, I'd like to address that if no one else would like to address. I think there was a couple of things that were working at that particular time. We knew that it really depended on what the Assembly did with the other chapters in 7 and 8 and 4 on how that was going to affect ultimately what happened in Eagle River, because it was just a makeover that. The other thing that we were told is that Assembly Member Osiander was going to take Chapter 10 and work on it with a consortium, that she wanted to have the opportunity to do that. And because of those two things, I think, at least in my view, and that we felt that we were going to have very little impact on it because we just didn't have enough information. We hadn't gotten the rest of the things approved to be able to make those decisions, knowing that some of those things were going to change simply because they were changed in the other chapters for the bowl area. And I think saying that, I think that's the reason we elected to do what we did, which is kind of, and I agree with you, kind of hurriedly went through it, but I think it was by design that Ms. Osiander wanted to take that responsibility of Chapter 10 and make it happen after all the design through the rest of Title 21 was completed. That at least was the place that I felt that where we were at the time that we did that and had that conversation. Any other comments from anyone? Commissioner Mulcahy?
Yeah, I think, Commissioner Roberts, your intent was that we really want the Assembly to take our recommendation, but also to take a look at what the consortium provided and give it some thought and consideration. Is that what your thoughts were?
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, I think that I think my urging would be that we were presented with a document in a rather quick turnaround time that I think was more than what any of us were comfortable with, and because of that, I feel like simply that the community will. I feel like they may have been shortchanged a little bit, and I simply want to go forward and sort of put the notion out there that we recommend that they look at some of those issues that perhaps we turned down because of the way it was presented to us, and just a positive. You know, again, this says, hey, we love everything that the consortium did, but then the reality was we voted it all down, and so. I sort of feel like if we can add that sentiment to the resolution, that we recognize that there will be some additional work done at the Assembly level to re-examine some of the proposals of the Chugiak Eagle River, and if done in a thoughtful manner, you know, we support that analysis.
Do you have a motion that you would like to propose?
Could I backtrack and split? I don't think I can say it again. I will move that we add under the findings of fact section of the resolution that we encourage the Assembly to take a closer look at the initial recommendations of the Chugiak Eagle River Consortium, and with the proper analysis consider those recommendations for code adoption.
Okay. Jill, did you have something that you wanted to?
I might suggest that it go under a whereas, because unfortunately you can't add additional findings of fact after you've already acted on the case.
Well, but I think that was things that we discussed. So perhaps it wasn't stated when the motion was passed. Is that what you're saying?
I'd have to go back and go through it.
I accept that. Let's add what my motion is as a whereas and move it forward.
I think it would be better suited under. I mean, even though it was your intent, it's one of the reasons we need to be careful about noting what's findings of fact and what were just part of the discussion as the hearing and the deliberations progressed. I can look as well, because it's going to have to come back to you anyway. So. Oh, you want to approve it with that change?
Yes.
Tonight?
Yes.
Okay, I understand. Okay. All right. Okay.
And you're making that as a motion, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, if you would push your button, then we can get a second on it. Is there a second for that? Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. And any discussion on that comment from anyone?
Okay. I think Mr. Robinson's motion conveys the sense of the body, because it wasn't up or down. There were a lot of things in play that, and my mic is on. There were a lot of things in play, and I think what he's proposed accurately conveys the sense of the body.
Any other comments? Okay, do Do we have anybody that, go ahead, Jill, did you have something? Okay. Do we have any concerns with that? Any other comments? None? Then I would ask, it looks like that motion passes and unanimously, and we will put that in the minutes and make that change. Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Just a note, I'm abstaining from that vote.
I'm sorry?
I am abstaining from that vote.
You abstaining? Okay, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Let's do the.
Mr. Phelps?
I had disclosed that I had not participated in the public hearing or any discussions on this land use section.
Except that this is a legislative type issue, and as such, you do not necessarily have to have been present to participate in ordinance legislative type action like this. So-
Okay,
So you would not need to abstain.
then I guess I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Okay. We have nothing else, right, Jill, until we get to the public hearing portion, correct? Yeah. Yes, yeah. Read this, public hearing, please. Okay, got it. And we'll now start the public hearing portion of our meeting. And I'll read this so that everyone here knows, and some of you can probably repeat it better than I. The procedures which the public may speak to the commission at this meeting is that after the staff presentation, which we'll ask for first, is completed on the public hearing item, the chair will ask for the public's testimony on the issues. Person who wishes to testify will follow the time limits established in the commission rules of procedure. Petitioners, including his or hers, all the representatives, have 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, communities, councils, PTAs, and the like will have 5 minutes. Individuals may have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the commission. An individual may have appeal rights relating to any action that the Planning and Zoning Commission takes. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after the Planning and Zoning Commission's final decision. Any individuals may request written findings from any commission decision within 7 days. Saying that, we will open the public hearing for case number 2012089, site plan review for a storage facility. And we would ask if staff had comments. Presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request for a site plan review for a self-storage and vehicle storage facility. The property is located on the east side of the Glen Highway between Settlers Drive on the west, Gorsuch Street on the east, south of Mount Eklutna Drive, and north of Chugach Drive. Driveway access to the site is from Settlers Drive, identified as a collector on the official streets and highways plan. The legal description of the site is Eklutna Heights subdivision, Block 1, lots 4A and 5A. And the proposal is Peters Creek self-storage. This 4.4 acre site is zoned B3SL. It was zoned during the area-wide rezoning for Peters Creek in 1985. The special limitations impose a requirement to provide screening, landscaping on the east boundary of lots 4 and 5 and the south boundary of lot 5A, adjoining a residential district, which is the R5A district. This proposal does include the development of 4 self-storage buildings containing a total of 500 storage units, 117 vehicle storage spaces, a 400 square foot conference office space, 2 1,000 square foot apartments, each containing 2 bedrooms. The development is to occur in 4 phases over a period of time that's estimated to be between 10 to 15 years. Time frame is depending on the demand for the service and the market conditions that do exist over that period of time. It could occur sooner, but that's the estimate for the development of this property. The proposal conforms to the Chugach Eagle River Comprehensive Plan update that classifies the petition's lots 4A and 5A as commercial. Self-storage and vehicle storage uses are permitted principal uses in the B3 district, but they are subject to a public hearing site plan review in conformance with AMC 214180. The site plan generally does meet the standards for the self-storage and vehicle storage uses. Condition 4 addresses the items which need to be amended on the site plan that generally address required landscaping, parking space dimension, and dumpster location and screening. This is the very first site plan that is a proposed phased development. And the site plan, a 4-phase site plan has been submitted. It is shown on pages 32 through 35 of the packet. And it does show the sequence of the proposed developments to be made by the applicant. But the phase plan doesn't include all of the required public improvements. Conditions 6A through D addresses the amendments that are needed to be included in each phase for 4 standalone projects. The reason for them being standalone projects is that a subdivision agreement will be required for the installation of the public improvements. However, financing will be difficult to obtain for a 10 to 15-year period. Therefore, if the projects are standalone, a subdivision agreement can be entered into each time a phase is proposed to come on board. And so the phase development, that condition was placed there so that each phase would be complete in and of itself until the project is fully completed, if that's how the development works out. In terms of impact on the surrounding area, there will be no change in vehicular access to the site. It is from Settlers Bay. There is no vehicular access to Gorsuch Drive. Gorsuch Drive isn't built to municipal standards, and it isn't even constructed. And the residential development has not been completed all the way. There's a lot of vacant lots adjoining this petition site at this time. Services are provided by the Chugach Volunteer Fire Service Area and SBIRSA, the Chugach, Birchwood, Eagle River Rural Road Service Area. The site is not served by public utilities. It will be served by on-site utilities. Those will be under the jurisdiction of the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation. It is considered a commercial use, and the municipality on-site services does not have jurisdiction over commercial utilities. It is not served by a pipe storm drain system. However, drainage will be handled with on-site infiltration galleries that are shown on the site plan. The development will be subject to obtaining a drainage analysis to ensure that surface water is treated on site. The landscaping, the setbacks, and the fencing should mitigate noise impact on the residential development to the south. Therefore, the Planning Department does recommend approval subject to the 9 conditions that are listed on pages 14 through 17 of the packet. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And do we have any questions? It look like Commissioner Ferguson has some questions.
I have a question on the phasing. Will they have to come back before this body on phase 2, 3, and 4? I mean, they're separate phases, separate projects, you said. I'm just trying to understand, are we approving phase 1 only, or are we approving phase 1 through 4?
Through the chair, Mr. Ferguson, this is a request to approve the entire site plan. Phase 1, of course, will be done first, but they will not have to come back for phase 2, 3, and 4. the entire site plan is, the request is to approve the entire site plan at this time, and they have submitted a site plan for the entire site. But the phasing is strictly a way of addressing the financing for the future development of the 4 phases over a period of time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Robinson.
Ms. O'Brien, recommendation 9 talks about drainage analysis under the building permit. Do you mean the land use permit in that case?
Through the chair, Mr. Robinson, that is correct. It is a land use permit area.
Mr. Robinson, do you have anything else? I'm sorry. Any other questions? Okay, then we'll open it up for the petitioner, if you'd like to come forward. And you have 10 minutes. How much would you like to say for rebuttal?
5.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Parks, members of the Commission, planning staff, and concerned members of the public. My name is Tom Dreyer, and I'm with S4 Group, and I represent the petitioners tonight, who are here in the audience for any questions you may have. Paul and Steve Schneider. And also in the audience, I have Dave Grenier, the civil engineer for the project. The zoning, which is on page 49 of your packet, is a copy of the SL zoning that in section 13A and B designates this area as B3 SL9. This is a permitted use as per Title 21, subject to a public hearing site plan review. The phasing, as stated by staff, is on your page 32 of the packet. And it's a 4-phase project with conditions that are assigned to each phase as they go along. The comprehensive plan, Chugach Eagle River comp plan, this is classified as commercial. And self-storage is regulated by Title 21, the supplemental district regulations, Title 2145-290, that we have complied with. I'd like to thank staff for their recommendations and coming up with a solution for the issues concerning the phasing, and we concur with all the staff's recommendations. And with that, I will make myself open for questions. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for the petitioner? Hearing none, you have 5 minutes, I guess a little more than that, about 8 minutes and 18 seconds remaining.
Thank you.
We'll open it to public hearing. In case number 2012089, we're now open for the public to make statements. If you would like to do that, if you come forward. This is the last call. Okay, then we'll ask you to do your rebuttal if you have some.
No, I don't. I just restate that I'd make myself open for questions. And
Any questions at all?
thank you.
Okay, then we will close the public hearing. And, oh, I'm sorry. Stacy, I'm sorry, I missed you.
Through the chair, I just had a minor question. On your plans, you say it's Pioneer Street. On the city's information, it says Settlers Drive.
I think it's Setters Street, yeah.
Okay, so it's just, you're just...
Little typo there,
Okay,
yeah.
no problem, thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions? The matter now rests with the commission, and I would take a motion. Mr. McCahey?
I move to approve case 2012-089, the site plan review for a self-storage and vehicle storage facility.
And do I have a second? I'm sorry. With conditions. Yeah.
I'm sorry, and with the recommendations, the staff recommendations on pages 14 through 17.
And it's been seconded by Commissioner Deans. Do I have any objections to approval? Then, okay. We need findings of fact, if we could, please.
Mr. Chair?
I'm sorry?
Excuse me for interrupting, but there was an amendment made by Commissioner Robinson to change it from building to land use permit.
Yes, that's right. That's correct. We do need to make sure those get in. The changes, Commissioner Robinson, that you had on,
You need some, that's a technical correction. Do you need anything on that?
Just as long as you concur to.
Yeah, I mean,
adjust
it's building permit versus land use permit because
Right.
it's the appropriate zone. I'd see that
we
here
had
as a
a
technical
change of the
correction.
street also.
That's the only
Yes.
change, right? You had nothing else? Yeah, it's just the building permit versus land use permit. There's no issue with that. Finding facts, this petition furthers the goals and policy of the comprehensive development plan and conforms to the comprehensive development plan in a manner required by Chapter 2105. It meets the criterion for the approval established under that title. Can be compatible with existing and planned land uses in the surrounding neighborhood and with the intent of its use district, and will not have a permanent negative impact on the items as listed below on pages 13 and 14. Okay with that?
And we hear no objections, then I assume that this is approved. And thank you for your presentation. We will now move to case number 2012-106, Cook Inlet Housing Authority, off-street parking conditional use permit. And Commissioner Robinson will not be participating in this, so we will be working with a short board, and the petitioner has agreed to that restriction that they have. And we'd ask for our staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application is a request from Cook Inlet Housing Authority for an off-street parking conditional use permit per AMC 2140-060D5. The subject parcel is a vacant, non-conforming 4,400 square foot lot. This lot was platted prior to zoning, and it is a legal non-conforming lot of record. It is located north of the Park Place Village retail and residential mixed-use project that was developed by Cook Inlet in 2006. That mixed-use project includes 2,400 square feet of retail space on the first floor and apartments on the second and third floor. The original building permit and zoning site plan review permitted a mixed-use parking reduction that is allowed underneath code. The justification provided for the parking reduction included the fact that the residential units were small, subsidized apartments for low-income households who are less likely to have who are more likely to rely on public transportation, and that the site was located on transit lines and in a pedestrian-oriented environment. While the residential units in the development have quickly leased, the retail component has lagged, and with the proposed conditional use permit, the applicant seeks an additional 11 off-street parking spaces to support the mixed-use project and make the retail space more marketable. The department, after reviewing the application, has determined that the proposed conditional use conforms to the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan, and that it meets all of the requirements for the R4 zoning regulations, the off-street parking regulations, and the conditional use standards for off-street parking. We also find that it is compatible with existing and planned land uses in the surrounding neighborhood and with the intent of the use district, and that the proposed off-street parking conditional use will not have a permanent negative impact substantially greater than that anticipated from permitted development. The department recommends approval of a conditional use permit per AMC 2140-060D5 to allow off-street parking on a vacant non-conforming lot of record in the R4 district, subject to the 3 conditions that are listed on page 9 of the staff report.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of staff, please? No questions of staff, then we'll ask the petitioner to come forward. please state your name, and you'll have 10 minutes. How much would you like to reserve for rebuttal?
Oh, half of that, 5, please.
Okay, thank you so much.
My name is Michael Fredericks, again with Rim First People. I'm here with Cook Inlet Housing Authority. And I would just like to add that we've been talking to the neighbor just to the north of this lot, and he's in agreement with the use that we're proposing, as well as the Mountain View Community Council, who has passed a resolution in support of the use of using this for parking. As Ms. Iverson said, the lot is too small to build on and too narrow, so we believe this is a great use for it. Thanks.
Thank you, and you have, looks like about 9 minutes remaining for rebuttal. Do we have any questions for the petitioner? Yes, Stacy, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, thank you, through the chair. My only question is there any landscaping plan required for this parking area?
Yes, there is a landscaping plan, and I was looking at your packet, and I don't know that it was included, but...
It is, I apologize, yeah.
Okay, so it sort of goes through there, the landscaping, and it's what is required, but in addition to the landscaping, we're going to be putting a 4-foot fence to the north, or to the north of the property, in collaboration with the neighbor.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Question, and I apologize if you address this. The staff has 3 recommendations there. Have you read those? You comfortable with all those recommendations?
Yes, we are.
You're comfortable.
Commissioner Phelps?
Yeah, you made the statement that the lot is too narrow and too small for development. I presume we're talking about residential development?
Yes.
Could you explain that a bit more?
Sure, I can. In your packet, if you look at the site plan on page 3, the lot, let me just get the bigger site plan up here. Do you have the... Well, this doesn't have the overall dimensions. Just 1 second. Steve, do you remember the overall? I'm going to ask Steve Pannone, the engineer, to come up to help us answer that. I don't have the exact overall dimensions, but I believe it's not a perfectly rectangular lot. It's a trapezoidal shape. So,
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the lot is the lot's 125 feet long and 35 feet at its widest spot. It's a remaining portion from the 1941 subdivision. And so it is where all the other lots are 50 feet wide. This one is only 35 feet wide.
Could you please state your last name and spell it for the record, please?
My last name is Pannone. That's P-A-N-N-O-N-E.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Seeing no other questions, I would ask for a positive motion. Oh, that's right. Sorry. Public hearing. I forgot. We now will be open for public hearing in case number 2012-106. Is there anyone here to testify in that case? Last chance. Anyone here to testify? It does not appear to be. The public hearing is now closed, and I would take a positive motion. No rebuttal? Oh, yeah. Did you have rebuttal at all?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'll take a positive motion. Commissioner Phelps?
Yes, in the matter of this case, which is off-street parking conditional use permit under AMC 2140-60D.5 in the R4 district, I move for the approval of the conditional use permit, subject to the conditions that are identified in the staff recommendations found on page 9 of the packet.
And that's seconded by Commissioner Ferguson. Did you have a question? Right. Okay, she's got it. Thank you. Do I have any objections to that motion? Seeing and hearing none, it would be approved, and then we'll ask for findings.
So, in this particular case, I have found that this particular proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's consistent with the zoning district. It meets the applicable standards for conditional uses in this particular zone. And it appears that they have attempted to work with the adjacent property owners to mitigate any adverse impacts. For these reasons, I would vote for it.
Thank you, Commissioner Phelps. That's it. Okay. And if we could ask Commissioner Robinson to come back in the room, please. We're ready for the next case. We will now be hearing public hearing for case number 2012-107, Frontier Hangar Group, LLC, zoning conditional use for a T transition district at the airport for refueling. Can I hear the staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The fleet fueling station, the purpose of the fleet fueling station is to improve efficiency in fuel transfer to commercial aircraft. Under the transition zoning district, the facility may be permitted as a conditional use if the Planning and Zoning Commission finds that noxious, injurious, or hazardous uses are prohibited, provided, however, that the Planning and Zoning Commission may grant a conditional use for such uses when it finds that the public health, safety, welfare, and convenience will be adequately protected by location, topography, buffer landscaping, or a screening structure in combination with visual enhancement landscaping, or by observation of protective performance standards that effectively remove the proposed use from classification as a nuisance. The petitioner's submittal states on page 4 of your packet under D3 that given the latest technologies, including vapor recovery systems to capture gas fumes, the Uniform Fire Code as set out in Chapter 23.5, and state oversight and regulations, no noxious, hazardous, or injurious uses or no negative impacts to the surrounding neighborhoods, to public safety, or to the environment are likely. The material safety data sheet lists jet fuel stable under normal conditions of use. It is not listed as an explosive hazard. No emission of dust, smoke, refuse matter, odor, noise, vibration will occur. The submittal also says that all fuel dispensing or transfers occur within lighted secondary containment areas. In case of a fuel spill, the fuel tanks are located in a concrete secondary containment area. Of the 4 general standards for conditional use approval, there are 4 A, B, C, and D. The department finds that those are met. Therefore, the department recommends approval of the conditional use to allow a fleet fueling station at Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport.
Thank you for your report. Do we have any questions for staff? Seeing no questions, we'll open it up for public hearing. Is the petitioner's? Yes, thank you. I don't believe we have to remind you have 10 minutes. And how much would you like to hold for rebuttal?
Good evening. I'll have about 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Wendy Wilbur with CRW Engineering Group, and I'm here representing Frontier Hangar Group, and the petitioner is here as well. I would like to be very clear on this project. This is within the secured area of the airport. It is fenced and you must have badge access to get in. This site is already asphalted and it is directly adjacent to the runways. This is not an increase in the amount of fuel that will be at the airport. It really is an efficiency. Currently the trucks have to haul fuel back and forth, and these tanks will make them closer to the commercial uses. This is jet gasoline. This is the same fuel that is in the airplane sitting on the tarmac. Under transitional zoning, industrial land uses are allowed, and when you read the code for industrial land uses, fueling stations, gas stations, and fleet services are outright permitted uses. This case is before you because it was interpreted in the code that this was an explosive use. However, when you do look at the material safety data sheets, which are produced for safety issues, it is a 0 for explosive, and it is a 2 for flammability. That means you need temperatures of between 100 and 200 degrees for it to ignite. And since we are complying with all the current codes for above-ground fuel storage tanks, it's very unlikely. And in terms of explosive, the risk is minimal to none, except under very extreme conditions, as we all know.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. You have 8 minutes and 20 seconds remaining. And we have a question for you, Commissioner Ferguson.
Actually, my question is for staff. How did we determine that this was an explosive material?
In answering your question, noxious, injurious, or hazardous uses are defined as uses which are defined as any use that may be noxious, injurious, or hazardous to surrounding property or persons by reason of the production or emission of dust, smoke, refuse matter, odor, gas fumes, noise, vibration, or similar substances or conditions, or the production or storage of explosive materials. The division felt that this use may involve some of these conditions under the definition of hazardous uses, and we wanted it to come forward to the Commission for further evaluation. And when we go through the conditional use process, we're getting more information, and we thought it would be wise to bring it before the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I have a question for the applicant. Approximately what did this cost the applicant to bring it before this body?
The fee was it $4,000 or $8,000? $4,000.
Okay, that was the fee to the city. What was the approximate value, if you're comfortable in disclosing it, to CRW to prepare the work in support of that?
I would say it was about equivalent to that figure.
So you spent $8,000 or $10,000, and it's taken you how long to get before this body?
45 days.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll now open it for a public hearing on case number 2012-107. Is there anyone here to speak to this case? No one here. The public hearing is now closed. Would you like to have some rebuttal time?
I would just like to say thank you to the Commission, and I would like to just note one other fact. According to Title 11 municipal airports, this use would also be allowed outright at Merrill Field. So thank you.
Thank you. What is the wishes of the Commission? I would take a positive motion for... I've already closed. I have a motion from Commissioner Deans.
In the matter of case 2012-107, Frontier Hangar Group, for the conditional use of allowing a fleet fueling station at Ted Stevens International Airport in a transitional district. I move to approve, including the department recommendation on page 5.
And that is seconded by Commissioner Ferguson. Do we have any discussion? I would take findings of fact, and then we'll ask for approval.
This fueling station meets all the criteria, and honestly, it was too bad that the petitioner had to go to this much trouble to do this.
I would like to have a finding that the Commission wishes that it had been investigated further before forcing the applicant to come before this body and take the time and the money to get here.
Fine, if you want to put that in. That's okay. Any objections to this motion? Seeing and hearing none, we will approve it, and we'll be moving on to case number 2012-108, Morrison Auto Group rezoning.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair here. Could I add one bit of information to the previous case? We also brought it forward because it's our understanding that all previous refueling stations at the airport have gone through the conditional use process.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we're ready for staff report on 2012, the Morrison Auto Group rezoning of B3 General Business District.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This proposed rezone is located in the Fairview neighborhood. The petition site is the last remaining lot on this block that is not zoned B3. Therefore, the rezoning will not create a domino effect of other rezonings. The B3 district is compatible with the commercial zoning on the north, south, and west sides of the petition site. It is unlikely that this petition site will be redeveloped for multifamily residential because of the size. It's only 7,000 square feet, and because it is adjacent to car sales and repair uses on three sides. The proposed rezoning from R4 to B3 meets the minimum area requirements and the standards of approval for a rezone. The rezone is supported by Anchorage 2020 and the 1982 Anchorage Bowl Comprehensive Development Plan. In Anchorage 2020, policies 5, 7, 14, and 21, as noted in the staff analysis, are the policies that this rezone request appears to meet. There have been no objections from any of the reviewing agencies or the public. There's a draft ordinance for the rezoning attached on page 7 of the packet. The department recommends approval of the rezoning to B3 and forwarding to the Assembly for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of staff? Seeing and hearing none, we'll open this for the public hearing or for the petitioner to come forward. And you two know that you have 10 minutes. How many minutes would you like to save?
Probably about 6.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Michelle Ritter with Dow HKM. With me this evening is the petitioner, Rick Morrison from Morrison Auto Group. As Francis noted, the property is surrounded by B3 to the north, south, and west, and it's actually in common ownership with the properties directly to the north, south, and west. And so likely this portion will just be, let me put that north, will be brought in and graded so that it can be used with the existing auto sales and service facility. And just want to note that on the east side of the site is Hyder, which is a freeway. Freeways require a 150-foot right-of-way. Currently it's 60-foot. If a major project like Highway to Highway ever went through, that entire property would be probably acquired. So it's likely that it wouldn't be developed for any other type of use. And we did go to the Fairview Community Council, and there was not a quorum, but they did vote with the sense of the body to support the rezone.
Are you done? Okay, you have 7 minutes and 52 seconds remaining. Do we have any questions from the commission? Seeing and hearing none, we'll open this to public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this case? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, and now you have a chance for rebuttal if you have anything else.
No, thank you to staff and to the commission, and just if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I don't see any. I would take a positive motion on this case. Oh, we ought to close. I guess we need to close the public hearing first, and then we will do that. I'll take a positive motion. Commissioner Robinson.
In the matter of case 2012-108, request to rezone approximately 7,000 square feet from R4 multifamily residential to B3 general business. I move that we forward to the Assembly for approval the zoning amendment.
And that's seconded by Commissioner Dean. Any comments? Would like to take a vote on this, and then we'll get findings. Is there any objection to this? It is approved, and now I'll take some findings, if we would, please.
In this case, as was stated in the staff report, the proposed rezone is consistent with Anchorage 2020 policies 5, 7, 14, and 21. The lot size meets the minimum threshold for a rezoning. In addition, the surrounding parcels are already zoned, and so in effect this is becoming more consistent with those surrounding zonings, and sort of look at this as a zoning map cleanup exercise. That's it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other findings? Okay. Well, that concludes all our public hearing. The other two cases have been postponed. We do have one other issue that I'd like to speak to, and we don't have any appearances tonight. No, I'm sorry, we do have one other case. I missed it. I apologize. We have case number 201211. I apologize for that. The Community Development Department of Municipality of Anchorage amending the Code of Regulations Planning Department fee increases. And I'm sorry, Eric, I didn't mean to cut you out of that. I just missed it. I had it marked out. We'll open that for comments for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a proposal to increase most of the land use fees by 12.5%. The last time there was an across-the-board fee increase was in January of 2004. The inflation rate in Anchorage since that time has been 21.9%. But as you can see, the proposal is not to increase by that much, but to only increase by 12.5%. As noted in my cover memo, when the entitlements that the staff works on are not fully paid for by the applicants, that they are then subsidized by the rest of the taxpayers in the municipality. And you can see the function cost comparison in 2005 and 2011 versus the revenues, and thus what the subsidy is. Included in the proposal are new fees. Particularly, I'll point out for small wind energy conversion systems. These are new processes that were added in 2010, but no fee was established at that time. There's also a fee deletion for work that is no longer performed by the planning division, and the ability to charge for recording at the district recorder's office when the staff performs that function rather than the applicant.
Okay. Do I have any questions for staff on this? Commissioner Robinson?
Could you just explain the basis for the 12.5%? I mean, I hear that you say that, you know, in some senses the fees are not fully paid for by the applicant. You know, that said, ideally they're performing some act that will eventually sort of pay dividends through the fact that it's being invested. So on the face, I agree, but that said, we're sort of paying to invest in our community. But where does the 12.5% come from? Is that similar to when the last fee increase happened? Is it sort of a straight line increase over the previous 4 years?
Through the chair, Mr. Robinson, I have to apologize. I cannot fully answer your question. This proposal was developed by Linda Brooks, who's the administrative director of the administrative division at the planning department, and she's been out with a medical issue. So I'm not sure why 12.5% was chosen over 10%, 15%. I would imagine there was looking at both the planning department's budget, at what would bring the gap between function cost and revenue closer together. I'd be happy to find that information out and bring it back to you, but I don't know it at this time.
No, I just would like to know how it relates to the budget in some sense. I mean, I understand that fees do go up. I will also say that if I had a project that went up 12.5% across the board, I'd be searching hard for where that money was going to come from. So all at once, depending on what you're looking at, it can be a bit of a jump. So I'd appreciate that background after the fact, even though I don't need it now.
Commissioner McKay.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I read it the first time through. I can't find it now. Can you explain that $300K plus drop in revenue?
Building permits are down.
Are you looking at the chart on page 1?
Yes, ma'am.
I can't, I'm sorry.
What could it possibly be due to the decrease in the value of construction going through?
It's got to be part of that.
Could you say, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
My green light's on. It sort of seems odd, 5 of us yelling across the room to this one. Could it be related to the drop in the value of construction performed in Anchorage?
The planning revenues aren't based on construction value. The permit revenues are, but the land use fees are not, so I'm assuming it's not that.
But there'd be less projects coming forward, so there'd be fewer land use fees.
Sure. But our function costs have remained pretty steady, so that I'm sure part of it is related to the economic downturn.
Got to be. Mr. Mulcahy, did you have something? Are you still in the queue? Okay, I'm sorry. And Mr. Phelps?
Yeah, I guess I'm concerned about having an adequate basis for making a recommendation here. I'm looking at the increases, and they seem to be reasonable. I guess my concern is that it's 12.5, and why 12.5? And I think we need to have a better basis for why it's 12.5 and not 8.5 or 15.5. And so I'm going to move that this be postponed until there is available information from the department.
Are you doing that?
Yes. My motion is to postpone action on this particular item until the department has the information available that we were discussing this evening, and specifically to be able to answer the question as to the reason for the 12.5 increase.
Do I have a second for that motion? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well,
Here we go. And Mr. Mulcahy, thank you.
I'll second it. And just, and I don't think we need the full budget detail to the nth degree, but a little bit more than 3 lines on a table would help me considerably to be comfortable with any kind of recommendation. Yeah.
I agree.
When it comes back, I'd be interested in knowing when the increase would take place, and I'd also be very interested in knowing any cost-saving moves the department has made to help reduce the increase.
Through the chair, Mr. Ferguson, the increase would take place January 1st of 2013. I can certainly itemize cost savings that have been taken, but I would note that several positions in the department have been vacant for some time. That is certainly one of the cost savings that's been happening.
That might help us make the decision.
Sure.
Commissioner Robinson, did you have it?
Just a question for staff, and rather than directly to the motion, I will be supporting the motion. But Ms. McConnell, when I know there's a lot of moving parts here, and we don't know exactly when Title 21 is going to be adopted, and we don't exactly know what in Title 21 is going to be adopted. But that said, can you generalize that whether there would be more, fewer, or about the same sort of revenues generated? What I'm trying to get at is, are there more reasons for conditional uses or site plan reviews or activities that would maybe presently be by right uses but now require some type of other activity that would kick in with with the revised, with Title 21.
Through the chair, Mr. Robinson, it was certainly one of the goals of the rewrite to reduce the number of conditional uses by providing more certainty with the standards. Whether after, 10 years we're actually there, it's hard to say because the list of uses, as you may recall, has gone from 300-something down to 100-something, so there's not really a one-to-one comparison. But I would say overall, I think we've probably reduced the number of conditional uses, but increased the number of site plan reviews. How that plays out in the overall picture in terms of fees, it's hard to say. The fees will need to be looked at once the new code is adopted to kind of evaluate how much time the new processes will be predicted to take, what processes kind of fit in with the fees that we have today versus what processes are kind of new and will need new fees worked out for them. So I can't really estimate how the revenue stream will work once the new code is adopted versus the current code.
No, I appreciate that. I'm a little bit sensitive in particular to the residential side of things. I mean, we had a work session today on a neighborhood plan that stated very clearly that it questioned the feasibility of residential development, more so than even commercial. We've heard that again and again with studies that have come forward. We had an Eagle River code change that wanted to make anything over, I think, 4 units in a condominium project go through a site plan review. And so I think, we're basically, my fear is that while we've streamlined some, we've kind of hit hard on an area that we both recognize as a need and is also the most difficult to sort of pencil out. And I know it's impossible to say one way or the other, but it's a concern I have. Again, I will say that every time costs go up with residential development, in any development, but it's difficult to make it work. And I think there's a lot of unknowns out there in terms of how many other processes, site plan reviews and things, both in terms of time and fees, that are going to add on to things that we do currently by right, and I do have a concern in that matter.
Thank you. Any other comments? I have a comment. Mr. Ferguson, Commissioner Ferguson, making a suggestion that it might be helpful if we had a work session on this. So what I would suggest that we do is vote on the motion, and maybe we have a 30-minute or 45-minute work session to kind of explain and answer some of the questions we've developed tonight. I, too, have the same kind of questions, Commissioner Robinson, that you have, and Commissioner Mulcahy. So I think that would be something, Erica, that might be helpful if we would bring staff forward and at least kind of make a little presentation, at least the process of how we got to the numbers. And I think that this commission would feel much better about voting in positive on that motion. I'm going to call for the vote on the motion, and then I would ask that we have a work session on it at some time in the future. Do I have any, do I have anybody that's objecting to the motion to postpone? Okay, then we'll say that it's approved.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It looks like the October 1st work session on the capital improvement program is going to need to be postponed due to when that information will be available to the commission. So if I could suggest maybe a 6 o'clock work session on October 1st, just for that half an hour.
I think that would be fine, Erica. Okay. I think that would be fine.
Thank you.
Okay, now that we're finished with all the cases that I tried to get us through much quicker than we did, we only have one other thing that I have on the list tonight, and that's Erica's asked that there's a group housing organization that's trying to put some group housing together, would like to have a work session with us to explain it before they come in and ask for this particular and Eric, I'm not really sure what they want. If you'd like to explain it to the board, I'd appreciate that.
Sure. There's a group in town that is working on a proposal for co-housing. There was an article in the paper, I don't know, some months ago about co-housing as a concept. I've visited a co-housing development in Massachusetts. It's something that exists in other parts of the country, but we have nothing in Anchorage to this time. This group will be bringing forward a conditional use PUD for their project later this year, but what they would like to do is give a work session to the Planning and Zoning Commission, not about their project, but about the concept of co-housing in general, in order to educate the commission on what this kind of style of housing is. Thank you.
How does the commission feel? Would you like to have a work session on that, or?
I'm a little bit concerned. Does that somehow co-op us in? I mean, everybody else has to come in and prepare their documentation and be submitted. I mean, if Dow asks for a meeting ahead of time to talk something over with the commission, or if, it's just, I'm a little concerned with it.
I guess I'm not that concerned, because if they're coming in here to talk to us about what co-housing is, and frankly, I don't know what co-housing is, it might be a learning opportunity for us. My thought would be is that if we're going to be talking about residential development anyway in a work session, perhaps that could be added to it as 15 more minutes or 20 more minutes to the work session.
Well, how does the commission feel? Because I guess we need to get Erica an idea whether to put that on the agenda or not. Anybody? I'm getting mixed signals, but no voices. Yes, Commissioner Robinson.
I mean, I'm a little bit familiar with co-housing. I know that I assume it's this group's had some presentations around town that have been publicized, and people have had the ability to go to if they choose to go that route. I'm sort of split on it. I don't know that I'll go, because I know a little bit about it, and I think probably their intent is when you go into a PUD and PUD by nature has some flexibility, they want to fully explain why they want that flexibility and how it fits with sort of the program of it. Look, I don't see how it can hurt. I just know that we've got a busy calendar, and I'm not sure that that I would attend, but I don't object to. It would always feel better to me if staff is bringing this forward as an education point or whatnot, rather than the group that's going to be petitioning. But I don't think it's incredibly harmful.
My suggestion is that we allow them to come to a work session. If you want to attend, fine. If you don't, that's fine too. I personally have virtually no information on that. And it might be helpful for me in a case that we had come forward to us.
My concern is, as long as we don't open the door and we start a groups beating their path to our door, that's what.
Yeah.
Private work sessions.
Well, we do several private work sessions anyway. If a big project's coming up and they want to explain to us because it's complicated and they don't feel like they can get it across in the 10 minutes that they have plus the questions, it really does eliminate a lot of the questions that come up if it's in a less formal format. I don't have any real issues with that as a commissioner. However, it does take time. But if you don't want to come, you don't need to come. I think that's one of the joys of a work session. So. Eric, I think I would go ahead and plan that. If the commission wants to come, that's fine. If they don't, you may only have me here, so you might warn them of that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do we have any other? We have nothing else on the schedule. Any commissioner comments before we take a motion to adjourn? I'll take a motion to adjourn then. So moved by Commissioner Ferguson and second by Ms. Deans. Thank you.